Well, I think we are at 1 o'clock, and Nikki, why don't you kick us off? Tell us about Community Living Campaign, our hosts.
Okay, hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nikki Tresvina. I'm with the Community Living Campaign as a connection, and my neighborhood is the Midtown neighborhood over there by Forest Hills. So we do a lot of advocacy and programming for seniors and people with disabilities in San Francisco. We do a lot of tech support, tech training, on just the basic stuff, because we want to make sure that the digital divide between tech and seniors and tech and disabled people does not get any wider. We're trying to narrow that gap. So if you, we'll put in our link to our webpage and to our event, so you can find out when we have those types of trainings. We also have exercise classes that are in person, and we have other online programs that are around art and health topics and just stuff that's really important to the senior community as well as the disabled community. So anyhow, one of our most popular is art viewing. It's been on for consistently, every 2 weeks we're here talking about different art exhibits. And I love seeing some of them. I recently saw the Juana Alicia exhibit that's at the Veterans Hall at 401 Van Ness, and that was very thrilling for me because I got to go to the opening reception. We want to let people know that the mural is still up at the MoMA. It'll be up, I believe, through January. And then it's going to take some time to get it over to City College, but it's returning back to City College. So that's a very, very important step, because having the mural there on that side of the city at the City College campus is going to be a big draw, because people from that side of the city normally, don't venture all the way downtown or to where the other museums are. So having Diego Rivera's Pan American mural there is very significant to this side of the city, my side of the city. Okay, so I'm going to let you take it over, Rodney, and introduce Dawn. And
Yeah,
also
thank you, Nikki. We really appreciate being hosted by Community Living Campaign. So it is Art Viewing Adventures. We're back, and this time, Don Ross, he has been on the show before talking about art exhibitions that he hosts at his gallery in the Mission, the An.ä.log Gallery. But I've always really, Don, enjoyed seeing your photographs. So Don is a staff photographer for San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, but also you do your own photography and you've displayed it. I've seen it at the An.ä.log Gallery, and I thought it'd be really fun to like look at your photographs and talk about them. So thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, glad to be here. Thank you. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you, Nikki, everybody. Good to see some familiar people in the chat, Paco and Sarah. So Rodney, you asked me if I would show my artwork, and I'm always a little shy to show my personal work.
You shouldn't be, Don, because I love it. Let me ask you though, before we jump in, what led to you becoming a photographer? What was your path to this career you've made?
What's really funny is when I was a little kid, probably 10 years old, I would go to my sister's basketball games and sport. She was quite the jock, so I would just sort of watch her games. But then I was a scavenger hunter, and I loved to find things. And this theme continues with my personal work to this day. But I found my first point and shoot camera, a 110 millimeter thin camera. I found it on the ground under the bleachers, and I brought it up into the light, and I asked my parents, can I keep this camera? Somebody had lost it, fell out of their pocket or whatever, and they said, sure, you can keep it. So I started photographing. I bought my own film with my allowance, and I would take pictures and then get them developed, and then I became sort of the family documentarian, if you will, and just photographed my family a lot. And then I took a darkroom photography class in high school, and I was hooked ever since.
But you go back to the days of film.
Yeah, so I developed my own film and printed my own photographs in the darkroom, with a red light and the trickling water. It's really quite a romantic scene. I love the dark room. I don't have one anymore. I do digital dark room, of course, with Photoshop and my own Epson printer and things like that. But I do like to experiment with one of the things I did when I was in high school and college in photography would be to experiment with different substrates, printing on different materials. So you'll see a little bit of that today. It still continues with me. I like to go beyond just the basic flat photograph when possible.
Well, let's jump in and start looking at these.
Okay, so I'm going to show you some
I do
of
like
my.
your story. It reminds me of JR, because I think the French photographer JR talked about how I think he found a camera also in that
Really?
career. Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Okay,
might have stolen it, I think.
what's that?
He might have stolen the camera.
Oh, well, I
Bit of a
kind of
young
did because I
ruffian.
didn't like, raise it up in the crowd and say anybody's camera. I don't really remember the details, but my parents said I could keep it, so I did.
Gail says your start in photography was serendipitous.
I think so. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen. So just a little self-portrait I took recently in the men's room at SFMOMA. It's got these great orange walls. When you walk in, you're kind of shocked. And on every floor of the building at SFMOMA is a different colored bathrooms. So you get like really crazy colors. So here I am just sort of self as camera, always looking for those moments to take pictures. But if anyone's interested, I have 2 Instagrams. That's kind of how I do the digital piece. I don't really maintain a website right now. I just do Instagram. One is for my personal work, which is the Don Ross photo. And the other is for the gallery that I run with my friend Guy, An.ä.log
Yeah, and I love visiting your gallery. It's just so it's kind of mellow. It's right off the street.
Yeah,
right around
we're
the corner.
small but mighty. It's in the bottom of a Victorian. It's in a garage. So I invite everybody to come out and see us. It's really fun.
Yeah. Let me ask one question about this image, Don. Like you kind of get a nice fade toward the top. Was that just like how it came out, or did you have to do something to get that?
It's how it came out with the lights there. So I just kind of left it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
neat.
that lens is sort of acting as my eye, if you will.
And maybe we should just invite everybody to go to SFMOMA and use the second floor men's room, which, by the way, you don't even need a ticket to go into, and do some photography in there.
Oh yeah, it's a funny place to do photography for sure. But yeah, it's quite shocking when you first walk in. The color.
I think you get vitamin C just from going in there.
I think you must. Yeah.
Oh, and Karen wants to know, what kind of camera are you using in that?
Oh, that is a Nikon Z9. It's a really great mirrorless monster of a machine. It's a beautiful contemporary camera, state of the art, makes great pictures. I'm very happy I get to work with it. Yeah.
And are you like the rest of us and also using an iPhone or
all the time, all the time. They always say the best camera is the one that you have on you. So I use my iPhone a lot because this one's kind of heavy. I don't always lug it around. And in fact, when I get to the pictures where I went to Mexico, there might be an instance where you can see the difference between an iPhone picture and a really robust Nikon picture. I went back to the place where I saw the light with the good camera. So I hustled back to make sure I got the good images with the good camera.
Could you keep us in suspense when we get to those and have us guess which is the iPhone and or is it pretty obvious?
Yeah. I'll let you guess. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be fun.
Cool. So I find inspiration for my photography in weird places, and especially not to talk too much about the pandemic because hopefully it's mostly behind us, but it was a time when I found a silver lining because I wasn't working at the time very much. I was working remotely, and I would go out on my daily walks, kind of in the thick of it. Remember when everybody was masked and we would go outside just to get some air? Well, I took my camera and I noticed it felt like, especially the neighborhood that I was in the Mission, near the Women's Building, which is near 18th and Valencia, that area was, and then Mission Street seemed to be completely locked down. And I found this dichotomy of this open, closed, and different layerings going on. But I was just enthralled with sort of the nuance of being inside and outside, and the clear distinction that we had set up, with everything feeling closed down, windows covered up. In some cases, people would put up crosses on their windows, you know, as maybe a religious significance for protection against the virus. But I became acutely aware of all the boundaries, all the separation between people, with gates and windows. And so I just kind of went to town and took a lot of those pictures. And then I also saw around my apartment, where I was living, that the apartment buildings had all these interesting buzzers, all these interesting doorbells, that I thought, well, there's at least 12 people packed in this one apartment, and I don't see any of them. And it just felt really like isolation time. But then I kind of got into like the fun of the decrepitude. I like to see the beauty in decay, and I found them to be really entertaining, such as like the broken taped up thing, and then sometimes the numbers would switch around and seemed a little confusing, and there were closed doors. And I don't know, I just find this sense of time, that time has passed, and things change, and people augment, and we're interesting creatures. We are creatures of invention, and will reinvent things.
You know what I like about these is, like, this is stuff we all go walking by every day, not paying attention. Oh, there's a door, there's some buzzers.
Yeah.
And you kind of are directing our attention to it and making us notice like these little things, like the fact that like 483 has a different colored button than 41 and 45.
Right.
Or that like the one that's broken, or the one you had some ones earlier where the buttons kind of have holes in them or something, like there's it makes me wonder, like, are the people who live in those apartments, are they really like just very popular people, and so their doorbell wears out quicker or something? There's like a story there, isn't there?
Yeah, and can they be reached anymore because the buzzer doesn't work?
Yes.
Yeah.
That could be a metaphor for, I got a friend like that. It's like his doorbell is broken.
Yeah. He's trying to tell you something there.
Not a reachable person anymore.
Not reachable right now. Yeah, just just sort of the mar of time, it's interesting to me. I like seeing things in decay, and then maybe like uplifting them through photography.
The other thing that strikes me is that it's very urban.
Yeah.
You're like obviously an urban creature, Don.
I am.
And you love kind of like navigating in this world and finding the stuff that we all just go waltzing by.
Yeah, but I also like nature, and I'll speak to that in just a second too, because I do need to get out of the city once in a while to refresh and get into the country and see some beautiful nature.
So these, like, did you just post these photographs on Instagram, or like, what became of these?
You're looking at it. It became a PowerPoint.
I like them. I think
a slideshow.
Yeah.
Thank you. I might put them in a book format one day. That could be kind of fun as a collection. I like to work in series, and so I think that's sometimes when you discover your strongest work is when you consistently work in a series, and then you develop sort of a voice within the series, and things emerge, and all the subtleties kind of come to the forefront eventually. Here's one that somebody did. It's kind of funny. Do you kind of get the inside joke here?
Come in, we're nope.
Yeah.
Like, no, yeah. Well, I
Right.
wonder what did they like? How did they get it to this? Or did they create this thing? Did they create this sign or did they adapt it from something else?
I think they adapted it from a come in, we're open sign, and they just switched some letters around.
That's great.
And that was the strong message.
I'm muting somebody.
Oh, yeah, somebody has
I
a phone
got
call
him.
or something. Thank you.
Yeah, keep going, Don. Sorry about that. Open
So-
is nope. Yes.
Open equals nope. So I found that there was definitely this, when we were coming out of it, there was definitely a mixed message. Seeing a lot of locks on Mission Street, almost shut down completely. And then I love this image that's on the right because it became emblematic for me, sort of summed up the pandemic for me with this mixed message where you can read open behind the closed gate. So I just kind of like that mixed message and playing around with that.
So this would be a series that would really evoke the pandemic, and
Yeah.
it's going to be important. I think a lot of us have put what we've been through out of our minds, but it's really changed everybody. So
Yeah. So I thought I'd share that first. And then I'm also, just to let y'all know, that I do run that gallery with my friend, An.ä.log Gallery. And we come up with themes and we invite artists to show their artwork with us. And I realized during the time as we're coming out of sheltering in place, I came up with this title called Creating in Place because I found that all my artist friends were still making work, of course. They're artists. They were mostly alone in their homes, but they were still making work. And I wanted to show that work. So I had 22 of my friends join me in having a big group show, and that was really fun. But this is the piece that came out of it for me, called Black and Sanguine, Twist, or otherwise open closed. So over the span of 6 weeks, I worked on this piece from a found piece of wood that I saw on the street. So not only do I like photography, but I like sculpture as well, and I like to sort of combine the two. There's a close-up, so it's made out of found wood. The photograph that I took, a little bit of fabric, some paint, and sand in some paint. Yeah. So this is the piece that I found on the street. I don't know why I took it off the street. I don't know why, really. In fact, I resisted the temptation to pick it up the first time, and I double backed and I picked it up. And then I proceeded over the next 6 weeks while in sheltering in place to work on it and to sort of care for it in a weird, twisted way. So I took out all the staples and all the nails, and I got out my sander and I sanded it down, and I wanted to have a nice smooth surface. And here's a sort of a little GIF of all the different iterations that it went through to get to its final form. So I would recommend, if you have an instinct to pick anything up off the street, go ahead and do it and work with it.
It reminds me of the artists, when Ellsworth Kelly's when it comes to mind, who liked randomness to play some role in their art. And for you, the randomness is this thing you found that you then adapted to this photograph you'd taken, and then you turn a photograph into a sculpture.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting, like how you because this is you're an urban creature, and this is something you found in the urban environment. You don't even know what it really was, but now it has this new life.
Yeah, and I wanted to highlight different areas of it because it's all constructed that way, even with the weird curve on the right and on the left. Like, what function did this piece of wood have? I have no idea to this day, but I just felt I wanted to take care of it and kind of breathe new life into it. And in the middle picture, you can see there's a bit of texture. I don't know if you can see that texture.
We can.
That occurs when you put sand in paint. So I went down to Ocean Beach and I got some good clean sand and I mixed it into my paint and it created this amazing texture that I loved. So I love the smooth versus the rough, you know, and different colors playing off each other. And in this case, that sanguine, that red, which has its own definition, but it kind of summed up the pandemic for me. And then I went down to Discount Fabric and I got some interesting fabric and I inserted it into the frame. So I sort of thought of it as a frame for a photograph in a way, but a very funky frame, right? So that's the final piece. Don't ask me what it means.
Well, I mean, to me, one of the things that is it does evoke the pandemic.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you have to know that that's the origin of it, you know, and it's very surreal. I think, you know, I got my Magritte background here. I think Renee would have enjoyed this.
You might have approved.
How big is this?
Oh, it's about 2 feet by 2 feet by 3 feet. Yeah. And it hangs on the wall. Yeah.
I mean,
So another series, like I said, I like to work in series, and I noticed on the stoop of the gallery, there would be these newspapers that showed up every week. And I don't know if this newspaper is still going. I don't know if it made it through the total pandemic, but I would see these abandoned newspapers on people's stoops all over the Mission. And sometimes they created really interesting pictures. So I would have I would sort of, I don't know, something with the bound newsprint. Usually a picture would come through on one side, but it's not the whole picture. It's just a part of the picture. But how much of a picture do you actually need to really get the point across? And this is another one too. This is the newspaper one. So they're about this size. There's a whole series of about 6 of them, and they all kind of hang together, and they're just on a simple velvet backdrop, and it actually looks very 3D when you see these in person. It almost looks like the paper itself. So I just put them on a black backdrop and photograph them, and they end up looking kind of 3D.
So isn't this again an example of randomness? Like you find these
Yeah.
newspapers, it's a random way they're displayed to you, and yet you say this is going to be my art.
Yeah, I like finding things. Ever since I found that camera, you know, it just continues on. But what I did notice about this about the news, about this paper, it's a Spanish paper, produced in the Mission. And again, I haven't seen them lately, but I collected what I did find. But it was a lot of the headlines at that time, definitely full of grief. You know, there were mass shootings at that time. Pandemic was going on. Little kids in masks. 4th of July tragedy. Lots of grief, and then the Dow Jones, of course, the crash, one of the many crashes. I don't know. I don't really follow the stock market, but seems like it's always going up and down, right? I just thought it was really interesting. And then there was, of course, a nice pastoral landscape. And that leads me into landscape and nature. I'm always interested in that piece. So like you said, Rodney, like I'm kind of a city person. I like the grit and the grime, but I do need to get out into nature and recharge my batteries every now and then. I'm imagining a lot of people feel this way. So I do take pictures of vistas that I see while I'm on my travels. This one's called Cold Mountain because it's very cold up there. But I love this idea of the road, like choosing the road that you're going to travel down. So it's sort of metaphorical for me a little bit. Often to
Not like the parallel, like with I imagine it's the same road, but there seems like a little parallel because it's
Yeah.
going on that bend.
Yeah, yeah. And then just happy accidents that happen. And so I like going on hikes on the weekends. This is at Phoenix Lake in Marin in Ross, a little town called Ross. It's called Phoenix Lake, and it's a reservoir that it's filled with water, and they use it for the drinking water, purify it, of course, but it's a reservoir in Marin. But I love these ghostly trees that look like they're on their way out, like they may be dying, but I got closer and they're completely covered with lichen.
Wow. And yeah, the reflection, of course, is what really
Yeah,
makes it.
yeah, I love these.
Yeah, I was saying Phoenix Lake is awesome. She's a Marin resident.
Oh, good, cool. And then, as a photographer or as a painter, anybody, maybe an artist or anybody loves that golden light, that golden light that you hope to capture, usually right at sunset or sundown or sunrise. Get that golden hour light. Tends to make your photographs really strong, gives them warmth. Sunset, horseback riding. Anyway, so those are basic, straight out of the box photographs, but I mentioned earlier, I like to take my photography a little bit further when I can, and I experiment with printing on different materials. This is a picture that I took with my good camera that to me kind of looks like a tapestry, or it looks like a painting almost. And that inspired me to print this work and other work like it for a show on silk. This is just a fern reflection, and this one as well. So I'm going to show you the before and after. That's the before, that's the source file. And if you can see, this
Wow.
is printed on silk.
So now it's got this kind of translucent
Yeah,
quality to it.
yeah. And it waves, it moves in the breeze, and you can see through it. So I had a really fun time printing on silk. Here's another
So
one.
tell me more about that, Don. Like how does one get stuff printed on the silk? Is you have to go through is there some service that does this, or do you know?
There is an artist friend of mine who I said to an artist friend of mine, I want to print these on silk, and she recommended me to an artist who always prints on silk. So he photographs in Cuba, like decrepit walls and paint peeling, and they're very abstract, and his medium is indeed printing on silk. So I paid him, and he helped produce these
What do
works
they
for
do?
me.
What do they do to the silk to enable it to retain a photographic image?
It's amazing. It comes, it's ready to print on the silk. There are manufacturers of almost every material you can imagine, from metal to silk to canvas. You've probably heard of canvas, but it's similar to canvas. It comes with a paper substrate as paper backing. You feed it through the big printer, and it just does its thing. It's these big Epson plotters that are about as tall as I am, like 6 or 7 feet tall, print out these amazing things on silk. So you can buy this material and run it through your Epson.
It's just amazing that we've only had photography for 150 years.
I
and
know.
now we can print on just about anything.
Yeah, I love that. It changes the the feel of it for sure when you print it on a different material.
Yeah.
This is just another landscape, but I'm always looking, even in my landscapes. This series was called Almost Natural, so it's like almost a natural landscape, but there's always funny things going on. And in this case, it's like pointing to the consumerism of the iPhone. This is this is like a really old generation iPhone, but I really kind of like that sort of like pointing the viewer toward the technology and the landscape.
Is this South San Francisco by any chance?
Yeah, that's South Mount San Bruno Mountain. Yeah, which is a great hiking place, actually. It's got similar terrain to that in Marin. So you feel like you're almost in Marin, with same kind of rocks, with the serpentine rocks and everything. So I'm always kind of playing around with that material. These are actually, so this is again back in the city. These are bus shelters that have been graffitied on. And I just catch the reflection. So I like the idea of multiple layers. So seeing through different layers and all adding up into one kind of thing. So the image on the left is from a TV show with a model, but you can see that like her hair is kind of mimicking some of the graffiti and whatnot. Oops.
So you photographed, this is a photograph of another photograph that had been defaced, basically, or graffiti.
Yes. Oops, I think I lost my I lost the Zoom part.
Oh, do you have a thing that says back to meeting?
Back to meeting.
Yeah, if you go back to the Zoom, so you can't see your images right now?
No, should I stop sharing and share again? Will that work?
That makes it easier for you, sure.
Okay. And then share again. Sorry about that.
It's okay. So I just see a recurring theme for you of like found objects, embracing randomness, and just like you've got this eye where you're always looking for the thing that we just think is ordinary and are walking by, and you want to make it extraordinary.
Just happens sometimes. What I love about the one on the right, I don't know if you can see, but you know how people have stickers and they'll just slap stickers up on things? Well, right in the center of this guy's third eye is a sticker that says dogma. And then the building is the reflection behind me, but all this other stuff is going on his face. I find it really interesting. Yeah.
The portrait of the world in which we live now, you know?
Yeah.
There's so much going on. It's kind of chaotic.
It's kind of chaotic.
But also there's a certain wryness to it.
Here's this is again in the Mission at a candle shop, kind of a spiritual candle shop bookstore. And I just really liked these archangels sort of kind of obscured with the reflection of the street and the gate. But putting them together almost looks like they're in battle, angels in battle. The artist muse, my doggie's no longer with me, but she was my muse at the time. This is Delilah. And one day we were hiking in Marin, and I had my blanket from my car, and I just she looked like she was a little cold, so I wrapped her up. And I just was enthralled with this image of my dog sort of being wrapped up in a blanket.
She seems very noble, Don.
She's very noble, yeah. But this set me on a trajectory to look for things that were wrapped. So I became wrapped with everything wrapped. And I had a show called Wrapped, R-A-P-T, where everything in it, something was covered in it. And I just began to see over and over, like everything that's covered up. I just was fascinated by that. So I was just taking pictures of things that were covered. And there, she was the start of that.
Thank you, Delilah.
Thank you, Delilah.
Great name for a dog.
Yeah, miss her. She was great.
Sorry, Don.
So I've always been interested in old cars as well, or cars. And then when I went to Laguna Beach, I found a car that had been covered. So it sort of brought my fascination with cars and covered things all together in one. And also my interest in printing on different materials. So this is a picture of the picture. It's on a wood cradle that you can buy at like the art supply store. And then I print the picture and then I cover it in what's called resin. So it's a hard, clear material that dries, and it's like 50 coats of varnish in one. And it makes everything look kind of candy coated. It's kind of fun. So then I took the next level and I decided I wanted to play with the color of the regular picture. So I inverted the colors in the picture. So whatever was blue turns this sort of orange yellow, whatever is green turns that sort of purple. And so it's just sort of playing with perception, you know, like how we see the world versus how we could see the world if everything were inverted.
We had different kinds of eyes, right? I mean, maybe this
Yeah.
is how certain other animals see it.
Yeah, yeah. So this fascination with covered cars took off, and I did a whole series. I did a show on covered cars and the inverted picture of those cars. Here's one that I found in Palm Springs, really long Cadillac covered up. And here's the inverted picture of that. So you really see different, I mean, for me, I see detail in different things.
Yeah.
You know, like the creases and the folds that you may not notice so much in the regular shot, but for me, they really pop out. And foliage goes from this beautiful green to this strange purple and white. I just kind of like that.
I love how the shadow, how it changes the shadow.
Yeah. Oh, it just completely blocks up, doesn't it?
You got some comments. I'll read them for you, Don.
Oh, sure.
First of all, Paco says this is so colorful. What a perspective. And Nikki's thinking maybe it's a Lincoln, the car that's covered. So she's thinking, what kind of car it might be.
I love that. Lincoln Continental, Nikki, you think?
Yeah, just because that tire thing in the back, you know, I think that was on the Lincolns, but I'm looking at it right now.
Those white walls.
And the
Yeah.
white wall, yeah. No, I love the old cars. So I appreciate that a lot.
Here's another one. Here's another covered car that I found in Alameda that looks like a little sporty car. But this is the size that I printed all those cars in. So I had about, I don't know, a good number, like 8 different cars treated normally and then inverted and hung right next to each other, playing off of each other.
If you go back to the last one, Sarah thinks it looks like a tsunami.
Oh.
Is it that one or is it the other one? That one, that one looks like, Hakusai, kind of like a wave breaking over the car.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Yeah, it brings up all different associations.
And what's you do the inversion in something like a Photoshop?
In Photoshop, yep, Command Control I for invert. You can just invert the color. And I wasn't kidding when I said I really am crazy about cars. I don't know. There's just something about cars that I'm really drawn to. And this is like a car that's being painted at a body shop. covered in plastic. Again, the covered car thing. Once you start looking, they're just everywhere.
I think it's our generation.
Maybe, huh?
We have such an appreciation for cars, and it's being so trashed now. It's so sad to see it go
I
out.
know. Yeah, there's not a lot of personality in new cars, but
No.
so my interest in so I just went to, I'm not a big fan of the band Metallica, but I just wanted to put the word out there because you know me, like I'm always trying different ways of printing. So I saw this scene in Mexico when I was on vacation in April. And you'll notice perhaps that when the cars drive by, kicks up this really fine dust, and this dust lands on the foliage on the palm trees and all the trees on the side of the road. And at a certain light, it acts as sort of a mirror. It looks like a very silvery sort of quality to it. And I was enthralled with that. And so I got some metallic paper in order to print it out, to give the sense of what I felt when I was there in Mexico, looking at this jungle joyride. So you can see on the right, there's like a golf cart with 3 young ladies just riding off into the sunset. Well, I rented one of those golf carts and I went from the beach to the jungle where I was staying about a mile outside of the beach. So I would tool down these roads and just have so much fun. But you kick up this wild dust and it lands on everything, and you can see on the bottom, that was the iPhone shot. It's a little cut off of the palm tree, but you can maybe kind of gather that it had the silvery quality to it. So to enhance it, I printed it on what's called a metallic paper, and it's a shiny paper. So when you look at it in a certain light, it looks like a mirror or it looks like a piece of metal. So that's displayed in the gallery. I apologize on the terrible lighting, but I wanted to kind of show you kind of what it looks like when it's hung on the wall. And then I had to really enhance those greens so that when I printed it, it looked rather normal, or a little bit enhanced, but I really wanted to enhance the greenness of the jungle and that sort of red color of the dust, sort of silvery color of the dust. And here's the landscape photographer in me, like really delving into the details. I don't know if you can see on this tree, but this tree, you can really see, I caught it right at sundown, and the trunk of the tree has this beautiful, it's like the bark is sort of peeling off, and you can, and it's catching the light. So these little pops of red. I just really like that, but you get that sense with the paper. It's sort of popping forward. It almost looks 3-dimensional to me. So there's my iPhone shot. Can you tell the difference between maybe that shot? Not really, right? It's a pretty good camera.
Probably, I mean, that's very detailed.
It's pretty detailed. Yeah. So that was the only iPhone shot. The other ones I ran back and got my good camera and took pictures with the good camera to get the detail.
I like the texture of this one.
Yeah, me too.
And again,
So,
I'm seeing
yeah.
like this is, you've got this natural setting, but the human impact is shown. You could call it a found image in that sense. The randomness of, people going by and doing this to this scene.
Yeah.
I'm looking at that photograph, the last one you just had on, and it reminds me of a vintage black and white photograph that's been colorized. It's an unusual, special kind of quality it has.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, wow. I didn't think of it like that, but You know, it's funny with Photoshop and with all the computer programs that we use now. I did sort of paint in certain areas of color. So there is that freedom, like to paint in areas and play around with color. That's a really interesting observation. I like that. I like that it harks back for you to like an antique process. That's really neat.
Paco is saying that these pictures are evoking to him dirt roads in the Philippines that he's familiar with.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Seems like the resolution on these is really extraordinary.
It's pretty great. And there's something about the paper. It's so finely detailed, printing it on the metallic sheen that it almost looks three-dimensional. I swear. It's kind of hard to describe. The pictures don't quite do it justice, but I tried to show.
Well, that's the thing. We're showing you on a computer monitor something that's on a different material.
Yeah.
So if you get, the big call to action here is if you get a chance to see some of your photographs. I know these were displayed in one of your last shows.
Yeah.
Will you be up again at some point, Don?
Yeah, I'll be up in fall or so this winter. I'll have another show. Yeah, so this is sort of the computer picture. I saturated the greens, and this is how it came out. So you never know what you're gonna get. Need some serious color profiling though, that's for sure.
Tell me more. Tell me about color profiling. How does that work?
Well, the ideal would be that what you
I got it. I took care of that.
Oh, sorry. The ideal would be that what you see on screen and what you print out are the same, that they look the same. But color is kind of hard to master. And so you need to have a color calibrated monitor, and you need to do some testing and dial in your monitor with your printer so that they speak to each other like really well. And so what you see on screen is what you get printed. But it's not always easy, and especially I was using a different paper. So instead of a standard paper, I'm using a silver paper. That's going to change things a bit, and it did, and I kind of liked it. So
it's like trial and error, and it's probably like that's not probably inexpensive material to work with, so you don't want to.
Right.
You don't want to do too much experimentation.
Yeah, I mean, it probably took me about 2 or 3 rounds per piece to get it right. Yeah.
And Karen says the details on these are great. She really likes that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially, I just love the jungle. It was really inspiring to be there for a week and to be sort of off the grid. I recommend going off the grid if you can.
Are you someone who really likes going to places that are very like different from where you usually are? Like, what's that like when you're in a place like the jungle after you spend most of your life in the city? What happens?
Yeah.
It's like, is it very invigorating?
It was really healing and inspiring. And I'll tell you that, like, I live in the city, I live in the Mission. I hear stuff from the street all the time. So you hear this street noise pretty much all the time, your neighbors or whatever. But when I got to the jungle, what I heard were birds. They would fly in, let's say 9 a.m. There's like maybe 10 birds of a certain species. They squawk and cackle and make this cacophony of sound and just a concert, and really interesting to listen to. Then they fly out. Then maybe an hour later, a different type of bird flies in, makes their noise, has their symphony. I spent a whole day, instead of going to the beach one day, I just stayed at the cabin in the jungle and just listened to the sound of the birds. And it was so fun.
Yeah, so like art isn't just creation, it's also taking in, like observing, being open to all the things that are going on around you.
Yeah.
Question from Sarah. What part of Mexico did you travel to?
Oh, this is Sayulita, Mexico, which is, you fly into Puerto Vallarta. It's on the western side, Mexico. You fly into Puerto Vallarta, and then you take a taxi or a bus 2 towns north. And as you go north, it becomes more and more remote. So it's really a surfer town. It's like a lot of Americans have moved there, actually. It's kind of an expat community, and a great surfing town. The beach is on a bay, and so if you wanted to take a surf lesson, you could take a surf lesson, and if you fall, it's what they call sandy bottom. So instead of being rocky, it's nice and sandy. So it's a good place to learn and not get too scraped up. It was really fun. And that's kind of it.
Yeah. That's the sculpture you like to close your exhibition.
That's right. Yeah, rounded out with a little bit of found objects.
Well, I'd like to know more about what's going on at An.ä.log Gallery, Don.
Sure.
Do you have any?
I have something to show you, actually. We have what's called a plein air painting show coming up. And plein air is a fancy French term for painting out of doors, painting outside. So it's the French tradition of taking your easel and your paints and going out into the landscape and painting what you see before you. But what's interesting is that it's like kind of a contemporary twist, because of course these are living artists now in California who take their easels and their paints, and sometimes they're in the country, but sometimes they're in the city. So they do cityscapes and landscapes. And this is an artist named Jenny Wentuch. I just met her, and she's going to show with us. This is Mila Kirilova. So the show is not long from now, a few weeks, September 8th, Friday. We're going to have a party and show all these beautiful landscapes and cityscapes. See if I can get a cityscape. Oh, I don't have any cityscapes, but they're in there. This is sort of a cityscape. It's a San Francisco scene. So these painters are really interested in painting outside, and they're very generous with their time. And if you came up to them and were curious, they would show you how they paint. It's really fun. So we're going to have demo days on Saturdays where the artists show up and set up their easels right outside the gallery and paint Victorians or paint whatever city scene is right before them.
Well, definitely, I'm going to try to make it. And I always enjoy your shows. It's a great location. So it's, I think it's between 23rd and 24th on Cap, which is just half a block from Mission.
Yeah.
So you got some great taquerias nearby. You're right next to the BART station, which is cool.
24th and Cap. Yep. Everybody's welcome. We're open 12 to 6 every Saturday, starting September 8th through November or October 7th. So we'll be open for like 6 Saturdays.
Yeah, I always come by, and I always like talking to you, Don. That's why I knew you'd be a great guest on the program, and
Thank you so much.
disappointed me at all. So that's great. Let me ask, since we have a couple more minutes, who are some of your favorite photographers? Who are some of the people that have really influenced you?
Oh, wow. Okay, so there's a photographer by the name of Irving Penn who lived in New York City, probably around the 1910s, 1920s, 30s, 40s. He was a commercial photographer, but he also did great personal work. And one of his most notable for me series was picking up cigarette butts off the street, taking them into the studio, getting really close, photographing these crusty old cigarette butts. But what he did with them was so beautiful. He turned something really ugly and gross into something very interesting. So I love Irving Penn.
I could definitely see how that's an important influence on you, Don.
Yeah.
Like the doorbell series.
Yeah,
is kind of like that.
yeah, a little bit. I'm not still sharing my screen, am I?
No, you're not.
Okay,
Who else comes to mind?
Who else comes to mind? The other Richard Avedon, a fashion photographer, just an incredible eye. He did a series called The American West, where he photographed a lot of people, different people, all different kinds of people, put them in front of the camera, and any types from like beekeepers to travelers to farm workers. He just photographed everybody, and they're so beautiful, and there's something magical in those photos. So if you get a chance to check out Richard Avedon's American West, really encapsulates all the differences of the people in the West.
I know he has that great photograph that was shown at Pier 24 of some guy he found in Nevada. Just like some guy who I guess is like, I don't know if he's a hobo or what, but he's got these creased lines on his face. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. That's great. Yeah. Speaking of which, we haven't seen in portraits that you do, but you like that's kind of, is that among the things you do for SFMOMA? Like what happens with your SFMOMA photography?
Sure, yeah, it gets published in member magazines and online on the website, and I actually do enjoy taking portraits of people. I find it really challenging and interesting to try to encapsulate someone's personality in a portrait. It's not always easy, but if you can really connect, I think the key is trying to make a connection with the subject, so that you're not like taking anything away from the person, but you're trying to show who they are through a portrait. I'm still struggling with it. It's still a challenge. It's everyone is different,
I would think you'd be really good, Don, because you're very personable.
Oh, thank you.
I think you took my employee badge picture or something way back when. It might have been the first time I met you.
That was good practice. Everybody's sort of in front of a white seamless backdrop, angled the same way, and I'm there like, lift your chin up, just a micro move, or turn your head, swivel your head. When I give directions, people are like, what? But you kind of want to get them in the right angle, so you might direct them a little bit. It's kind of fun. I did hundreds and hundreds of those headshots, so I think I got some good practice for the true portraiture type that I'm trying to work with now.
But you don't have to do that with doorbells. That's
No, they're
the nice thing
stationary.
about your other body of work. Well, it's been really fascinating, Don, hearing about these photographs, kind of what inspired you to take them, and kind of seeing the world through your eyes. So thank you so much for.
I'm honored to have shared all this various work. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And I believe you're going to be back in a couple of weeks. We're going to be talking about the exhibition Frank Bowling at SFMOMA. We're going to do a panel discussion of that. So you'll be back in 2 weeks, August 28th. So folks, look forward to that. Does anybody have any last questions for Don before we turn it back to Nikki?
Oh, Rodney, by the way, this is very fascinating for me.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Fascinating show.
Seeing some nice comments. Karen says that this was fun. Sarah says a wonderful show. Dana says thanks so much.
Very enjoyable, Rodney.
Well, good. It was very enjoyable for me.
It was nice. I really enjoyed it.
And Don too.
Something hit me personally there, Don, and I lived in the Mission in the 80s, and that's what the buildings and the doorbells looked like then. It was really like going back in time before all the gentrification and the ring bell, and everybody looks alike.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, those ring bells are no fun,
Yeah, I know. So aren't they boring?
Yeah.
So what you
I
showed
see.
us was old and funky, but that's the way it is, you know?
I see a question out there from.
Is there a phone number to the gallery so we can ask you some questions?
Sure.
You want to pop up that screen again?
I'll
Don,
put it in.
your, gallery?
Yeah, let's see. Well, I can put my phone number, the phone number in the chat. Is that good? Is that good?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I wanted to point out that that location of the gallery is an amazing location, and the weekend of the 16th, there's going to be a big festival, street festival for it's called the Fiesta de las Americas at the sort of Latino Heritage Month. So that would be a really fun time to come to your gallery.
Yes, and I
So,
need, Nikki, I need to align with you or align with other folks too, like Calle 24. We would love to be a part of, help support a festival such as this in the future, hopefully.
Oh, yeah.
Love to.
Yeah, no, I have the contacts of the people that run that organization. Yeah, so I will write down your phone number so that I can call you.
That would be great. That would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
I already have your phone number, John.
Okay, great.
I wanted to tell you, I was up photographing gates one day, and this guy saw me from his window. I don't know if he had a camera or what, because I was trying to get a nice shot, and he came to the window and went crazy. He told me not to take a picture. What was I doing?
You obviously look suspicious.
Well, he might have been in the witness protection program or something.
That's right.
He felt
That's right.
a little
Wow.
afraid of what you were doing.
I just tell people now, like, if they bother me, I just like, I'm a photographer. I have a certain license. Leave me alone, and I'll leave you alone.
Artistic license,
out of there.
right?
It's a public space. You can take a
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah.
And some comments from Gail. She says she really enjoyed the show. It's really hard to find nice doorbells, by the way. Check out the doorbells in Pack Heights.
Oh.
Gorgeous custom doorbells.
I bet.
Beautiful gates too.
Beautiful
Made out of
gates.
bronze.
All right. Well, Nikki, I'll turn it back to you. And I'll just mention, I know one of the things coming up on Community Living Campaign is my friend Richie Unterberg is going to be doing a program on early Canadian folk, I think, tonight. So that's
Yes, Ronnie, I'm gonna be there at Rich's program.
Paco will be there. So don't miss out on that. What else?
Yeah.
What else do we have to look forward to from Community
Let's
Living
see.
Campaign?
That'll be on tonight at 6, and then we're coming back here on the 28th with Frank Bowling. And that night, Richie's gonna have the folk revival. So those are the really very popular programs that we have. And along with that, we have lots of tech stuff, which I really want. I can't repeat it enough, that if you know seniors that struggle with their phone or not sure about email and all that stuff that's basic to most of us now, we want them to be on board with it. So please remember that CLC stands for, tech and disabled and seniors coming together, and then these beautiful artistic programs like Rodney's. So I want to thank everybody for being here. This was really fun today. Just felt so light and friendly and nice and cheerful. So it's glad to be part of it. And thank you, Jennifer, our tech person.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, I want to say a special shout out to Peter and Kevin, who I get to see every now and then in person, and everybody else who joins us on a regular basis. I see a lot of names week after week, so thank you for your loyalty to this program. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Don.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Don.
listening.
Everybody, have a
Especially.
good
Thanks,
week.
Rodney.
Take care.
Thank you.
Apart from Gail, that's nice.